Hey gang, Ron here. Welcome on back to the Cade and another episode of Sports Saturday. Now this one might be a little bit different than our normal fare, only because we are still continuing with our playthrough of Sega Sports NFL 2K2 and our what-if scenario of building the New England Patriots franchise of the early 2000s without Tom Brady. Well, if you've been following along for the last couple of weeks, you know we finished the season, we got to the Super Bowl, and we managed to beat the New Orleans Saints to clinch our first Lombardi trophy. But now what we've got to do is we've got to go through the offseason to get ready for Season 2. So what we're going to do this episode, and I will freely concede right now, if you want to skip through this one and wait until we're back into actually playing the full season again, totally get it. This isn't going to be for everybody. But I won't lie in that one of my favorite things about playing NFL games in particularly, and this also applies to baseball and basketball and other major sports as well, is that because you have the ability to build your own franchise and control it the way you want, I won't lie, half the fun for me is when I get to this part of the season and I get to start building my team for the next go-around. So what I need to do in this episode is we're gonna go through the entire offseason. So hopefully this won't take too long. It says week 1 of 6, but hopefully this should be fairly quick, so I want to keep it to about a half an hour. But what we got to do is that we have got to go in and see what our needs are. And what we need is we need wide receivers. We need another quarterback, because it looks like either our prime or our backup quarterback, we should still have Drew Bledsoe. I don't see why we wouldn't. We need a center and a guard for our offensive line. We seem to be doing well on the defensive side. We've got defensive backs, we've got kickers, punters, so we've got to focus on the offensive side of the ball. And one big issue that we really have to knock out is wide receiver. We had some really mediocre wideouts last year. They got us through it, but if you followed along, you know what we really managed to get through the year with was our running backs. We had Jared Redmond. He had a stellar year, better than he had in any actual season in which he played in the NFL by a long way. But we need to give Drew Bledsoe weapons. So, and that also applies to having tight ends. Our tight ends are not great either. So it looks like we need to get four wide receivers, at least one center, one guard, probably a tight end or two, and another quarterback to add to the ranks for the preseason. So let's see here. So we still have 3 quarterbacks. We've got Drew Bledsoe, Damian Heward, and Michael Bishop. So, looking at our schedule here, or looking at our roster of players we need to sign, it looks like as we have about $17 million in cap room that we can utilize. We want to lock all these guys down. Now, what I will probably not do is I won't worry about signing Charlie Johnson, and I won't worry about signing Simmons because, again, we're going to replace them predominantly with new talent. But what I definitely want to do is I want to get rid of, or I want to at least take care of my big guys. So, let's see here. I mean, having a backup defensive end isn't bad. I want to re-sign Ted Johnson for sure. I'll probably re-sign Johnson when I think about it, because if anything else, I can have him be a backup to better talent that I will hopefully bring on board. But everybody else, Spires, Parker, Dalton, and Simmons, I can afford to let them go. And you may sit there and think I'm being ruthless about this, but, I mean, honestly, it's what we got to do. So you can look at the college players available for the draft by choosing the scouting menu. Okay, well, let's do that. I don't need quarterbacks. I don't need running backs. I need wideouts. And the thing is the other thing I like about games like this, is that I don't always have to go for the biggest name talent. Obviously, I want to be able to get somebody like that. But if I get guys who are kind of here in the middle and am able to build them up, then that's going to be as good for me as anything else. Like, I can try and go for Fox here, but odds are, because he's an 88, he's going to be a high draft pick. And because I have to draft at the bottom of each round, considering my team won the Super Bowl, I'm not going to get first crack at these guys unless I've already made some deals that allow me to do that. So, let's go to the next week. Is there anybody new I need to sign? No. So while I'm at it, let's see who else we have. So we've got a pretty good crop of tight ends at the top too. So I need to think about that. Centers, we're going to probably get, if we can get one of these top 4, that would be helpful. Same thing with the guards. But it looks like everybody is barely topping off at 80. We're all mid-70s at the top, and then you hit the 60s, and it's all kind of downhill from there. So, based on that, let's see what else we need here. Whoops. And we have so many linebackers. We've got so many defensive backs. We've got 3 tackles, 3 defensive ends. So cutting those other guys loose is not going to be a super big deal. And we do get 7 rounds to choose from in the NFL draft, if you're not familiar with it. So you're now about to enter the rookie draft. Fill the needs of your team by getting a diamond in the rough or the best available athlete. You still need to sign them to contracts, so select those players that you think you can afford. I don't want to auto draft because I want to be able to pick what I've got here. How does it feel, baby? Now this will probably take the longest of this episode just because they're going to go through all 32 teams, including me. But that they don't waste a ton of time drafting for the other clubs is good for me. So I got to think about this strategically. We know we need offensive help, so I need wide receivers and tight ends. And I need to shore up the offensive line, so I need a center and a guard. So I don't need to worry about a quarterback right now. Don't need to worry about a running back right now. Who do I have available? I've got Lucas at 78. Got good speed. He's fairly agile, but he's more of a straight speed guy. Runs really good routes, can catch well, and he can jump like a gazelle. Got a good one as a tight end. He's 78. We still got this center at 80. He'd be backing up Damian Woody. Now, Damian Woody is an all-pro and I think borderline Hall of Fame center. We've got 2 guards here, so we need another one to back hit these guys up. So I am going to just bite the bullet here, and I'm going to grab me Lucas. Now we'll go to the second round. So by the time this is done, I will have been able to pick up at a minimum 7 players. Hopefully. And then that will make up my rookie core that I can add to my team going into next season. So the wide receivers have dropped by quite a lot. So now we're looking at 67 as the best ones. But we've got a pretty good tight end here at 76. Now Rutledge is 76, but he was terrible. He couldn't catch worth a dang. And I know because I was trying to throw to him for most of the season. So the thing about tight ends is that they're not the fastest guys. So I'm not looking for a speed guy. What I need is a guy who can help block, and this guy can help run block quite well. And he looks like a decent catcher. So, let's go ahead and take Padilla. Although Watson is still there at 80. And I don't know how long he's going to be there either. Now, the thing about it, if Watson gets taken, I've got 3 guys who are here in the middle at 76, 74, and 74. And Becker actually looks like a better run blocker, but Watson is a better pass blocker. And compared to Woody, he might actually be the better guy here. And this is where you run into the problem when you draft players. Because you have an idea of what you need, you have an idea of what you want, but then you can only pick one at a time. Let's see. The guards have dropped down quite a bit. Then I've got Compton and Light. Compton's at 71, Light is at 68. So getting a guy who is a little bit lower down as a backup to those two isn't terrible. And you also have to think about in terms of if you don't get everybody you want this year, but you can fill in enough holes, then come next year, depending on what the draft crop is, you might have the players you need that you can really fill those lacking holes in and then really boost your team up. Okay, I need to make a decision here. I'm going to go ahead and take Watson as my backup center. And I'm going to make a gamble that maybe... Nope, Padilla just went. So the tight end is off the board. So now I got to see what is next. And I still need a tight end, and I still need to look back at other receivers. So the receivers have dropped to 63. I've got Thompson at 65. He'd be better than Holloway for sure. Although Stevenson is here at 60, and he's got decent speed, good agility, can run routes well, and he can catch. The only problem is he can't run block. So there's always going to be a trade-off in the guys you draft. There's always going to be positives and negatives, and that happens with everybody in pretty much any sports game. And you've got to weigh the risk of taking a guy like this versus a guy like this. If you can get a guy who's not as fast and not as agile, but he can block, he can help you in multiple prongs of an offense or a defensive scheme. So, I've got my center. I've got my primary wide receiver. Let's take Thompson to go along with Rutledge, because if anything, I can disperse Holloway. And then we'll see what comes up in round 4. And by the time you get towards the end of a draft, you're really picking role players anyway. So the guys you pick at the lower end are not always... They're not going to be marquee guys regardless. But, as they said at the outset, you can get lucky and find a diamond in the rough. I remember when I used to play Madden football back in the day. I think it was 2019. It was the last one I played. And the last guy who gets picked in the draft, the very, very last player, is referred to as Mr. Irrelevant. And you've probably heard that term in the NFL for the last couple of years around a guy named Brock Purdy, who was taken as the very, very last pick in the draft by the San Francisco 49ers, and happens to be their current starting quarterback. He's helped take them to 1 Super Bowl appearance, although they haven't won. And it's a rarity to be sure. I had something happen similarly with a tight end I took, and I still remember his name, Dante Clark. He was the last pick in the draft that I took one year, and he became a Hall of Fame tight end. And retired with exactly 200 touchdowns to his name. So it happens. You never know. So I have 4 wide receivers, and now we're kind of skimming the barrel here. But we still got guys who could be potentially helpful. So like this guy Olsen here, he's rated 58. He's not got great speed. He's got decent agility though. He's got 88. Not great at running routes. Got probably a C grade catch, and he's a B jumper. Now, what I could potentially do with a guy like this is if I can use him in like short yardage, because he's got a decent catch rating, if I need to bring him in and have him run specific routes and not necessarily be a deep threat, that could be helpful. And if not, he'll be a practice guy, and I'll probably get rid of him next season. Now, I should look on the defensive side of the ball anyway. Even though we're fairly set on that side, you never know who you're going to find that might be able to help you out in certain areas. And one thing we need to look at is, even though we've got, I think, 9 defensive backs, I don't know how many of them are left that are going to be worth a dang, but we'll see. I should pick up at least one defensive player. So we've pretty much milked the wide receiver pool dry. There's no tight ends left, so we were smart to pick Thompson up. There's still quite a few centers left, and actually there's some fairly good ones. So I may have to keep that in mind. Still got some good third string guards I can pick up. I still need to grab one of them. I still got Vinatieri as my kicker. He's not going anywhere for now. So the defensive tackles have been pretty much fleeced. Defensive ends aren't bad. And I do need a true defensive end because I've got Willie McGinnis, who's actually a linebacker. So let's see here. We've got a good pass rusher here at Robertson at 67. Not a great tackler, though. Whereas Hammond is a good tackler. Okay in the pass rush. Good, really good run support. Doesn't have a lot of upper body strength. Doesn't have a lot of lower, or it's got more lower body strength. So from the waist down, he's a tank. Let's see here. I've got plenty of linebackers. So I think I'm good there. I still got Lawyer and Ty. I've got Jones. I've got Sarwan. So I'm actually fairly good on the defensive back core. So, okay. So we'll go back to what we were looking at here, and I'm going to pick up McGee. Now, the other thing about having offensive linemen, and I don't know if it's going to be this useful in this game or not, but in later games, it became a way where you can actually take different offensive linemen at different positions, and you can move them around. So if you have a guy you draft as a center, you can actually move him over to like a tackle or a guard position. It doesn't necessarily mean his ratings are going to completely translate, but the matrix on this game isn't quite so advanced, so I'm not entirely sure. But let's see here. We've got Collins at 57, decent run blocker, barely adequate pass blocker. But is he going to see a lot of field time during the regular season? No. And Delgado is actually better. He's better at pass blocking, gives up a little run block, has a lot better upper body strength, not a great lower body strength, and he's slower than a slug. But if I need him to stand there and just hold up a guy for a minute, then we may have to do that. Now I've got 3 tackles, so I don't need to worry about that. So, I'm going to take a chance on Delgado here. I got a hunch about him. So now we're in the 7th round, so we will have one more go to pick somebody, and pretty much, if we don't have the last pick in the draft, I'd be surprised. Now, as the game said, we've got to sign all of our players, but because these are rookies, the first probably 1 or 2 picks are going to be a little expensive. But rookies predominantly don't get signed to big contracts yet. So all the guards are gone. We still got 1 extra center we could draft. I've already picked up 2. Got tackles here. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do? We needed to shore up the offensive line, like I said. This guy's actually pretty quick, Leonard. And he's got C's across the board in terms of run block, pass block, upper body strength, and he's got horse legs to drive with. Dude is a power offensive tackle. I'm going to take a chance with him. So, we've drafted 2 wide receivers, 2 centers, 1 tight end, a guard, and a tackle. So we went entirely with our offense getting better, which will hopefully help out Drew, it'll help out the running game, and it'll help out the passing game. So this is a signing period. So now we've got to go ahead and sign these guys. So I'm assuming that's here. Yep. So these guys, our total salary now is just under $48 million, and our cap is $67.4 million. So we have pretty much, near as it makes no difference, $20 million to work with. And we only have 43 players on the team. Now, the maximum that you can have on a team, if I remember right, is 55. So we're going to sign these 7. And, again, because they're rookies, they're not going to be worth a ton. So I'm absolutely going to sign all of them, because why not? And I don't know if we're going to have this come up in this game or not. Let's see what we need here. Whoops, that was the... So say we need a defensive tackle. It says we need a defensive end. We don't need anything else. But we got 2 for each. And I can cut players if I want. And it doesn't look like I can do free agent signing yet. So signed all my players. It's now the preseason. So now what I'm wondering is, can I... There we go. So now we have free agents that we can look at. And we still got a ton of room to work with. And now we've got a really good defensive tackle here in Gardner, and he's a 90. And we also have Warren here at 80. I think it's Kyle Vandenbosch. I want to say it's 71. So let's see here. I thought I had him. There we go. So we can sign Halsey for $1.3 million for 3 years. And let's see if I can get those other 2. So Gardner wants $2.8 million for 4 years, which is still well below the cap. And I think I can still get Warren here, who wants 1.7 for 3 years. So we are still well below the cap by about $9 million. We have 53 players on the roster, which means I don't think we've got to worry about cutting anybody. And now, if we look at the depth chart, we still have all of our quarterbacks, which is what we want. We've got J.R. Redmond still as our primary running back, which is great. Although Kevin Falk at 88, I mean, we're in a lot of ways we're wasting him, not having him be there more often. What I will probably do is move him up, because Edwards is going to be a fullback and he'll always be our power guy. So actually that may be why he's there, and I don't want to have Falk because he's not built to be a fullback. So we'll do that. We've got our guys here, so let's change these around. So now we've got them, we've got Thompson, we've got to move That's crazy that Richard Seymour is there at 77. And he wasn't bad. So, let's do it this way. And then we've got Halsey at 74. We've got McGinnis and Mitchell. We've got all of our linebackers, although I'm going to move. It's funny how these guys are kind of all scattered around the place. Because I should have my best guys all lined up. So I have Johnson, Brewski, Cox, Katzenmoyer, Izzo, and then go from there. Do the same thing with defensive backs, and now it looks like we're in good shape. So, and that works out perfectly because we're just about 30 minutes. So that takes care of preseason, or the off-season rather, and now we are at a space where we can go ahead and jump into the preseason. Which means who are we going to take on to open up against? It'll be a Sunday night game in Buffalo against the Bills. So, alrighty, well then, that will be left for our next episode. Now, before we jump into that, a little bit of housekeeping before we close out. What we're going to do is, now that we've got the offseason done and we're ready for the next season, what we've decided to do is we're going to take a couple of weeks from NFL 2K2 off. We're not going to end it, but what we want to do is we want to get back to playing some other sports games and have a little change of pace before we jump straight into the next season. Now, because the NFL is actually going on right now, what we're going to do is this is going to take place over the through the end of November. So we're going to take about, at this point, it'll be, 3 weeks? And we'll do 2 different episodes of Sports Saturday of different franchises. And then in December, we'll jump back in and we'll start recording the new season of NFL 2K2. Also, be sure to tune in to Sucker Punch Sunday as well. Same protocol there. We play a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. Also, be sure to tune in for our ongoing playthrough of Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden. We are now about 16, 17 episodes in on that one, and we have got new ones coming out, as usual, every Monday and Wednesday. Be sure to follow us on social media through Instagram and Threads. We're on RetroCade. Help spread the word about us as we continue to build the channel and make it bigger and better. And a huge thank you, and I cannot be more sincere about that, to everybody who has subscribed in the last couple of weeks. Our subscription base jumped from about 180 to nearly 220 in about 2 weeks, which the metrics are not lost on us, and seeing that spike was a huge boost for us going into the end of the year. That means that we're making content that you guys are interested in, that's drawing you in, that's got you coming back, and we could not be happier. So obviously in this season of Thanksgiving, genuine thanks from all of us here on the crew for doing that. It means a ton to us, believe me. And as always, if there's a game you'd like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis or MegaDrive, SNK Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on Instagram or Threads. Could be any game from those consoles you want. It's been a while since I've given that little pitch, so it's not hard to trip over. My name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Sports Saturday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming. We'll talk to you tomorrow for another edition of Sucker Punch Sunday. Bye.